If you spend any time scrolling through social media, sitting in family gatherings, or listening to public debates across the continent, you've probably heard this phrase used to silence a woman. That is not our culture. We are told that submissiveness is the ultimate traditional African virtue. We are told that a woman's place is strictly domestic, quiet, and secondary to male authority. We are told that demanding equal leadership, economic autonomy, or political power is a Western modern import designed to destroy African family values. But what if I told you that the exact opposite is true? Welcome back to the African Teapot. I am Exie. Today, we are heating up a very heavy brew. We are dismantling a massive historical lie because the highly restrictive, subservient gender role that are peddled across Africa today under the sacred banner of ancestral tradition are not African at all. They are the leftover dusty laws of the 19th century Victorian Europe. We have suffered a profound cultural identity theft, mistaking the colonial chains of our conquerors for the crown of our ancestors. Pour your tea because we are stripping away the colonial paint to find the real queens and how the real kings are underneath. Welcome to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie and I'm your host. Journey with me through Africa's vast variety of culture, heritage, and discuss issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure you add this podcast to your frequent podcast rotations and don't forget to share and follow this podcast. To truly understand how deeply we've been lied to, we have to travel back to the era before European borders were carved into our soils. Pre-colonial African societies were not perfect, but they were remarkably sophisticated in how they structured power. Unlike Europe, which operated under a strict singular patriarchy, where women were legally considered the property of their fathers or husbands, many African systems operated on what historians call a dual-sex system. Power wasn't concentrated in a single male king, it was balanced. Take Igbo land, for example. They had a system of parallel governance. The Obi was the male king, yes, but he ruled alongside the Omu, the female king. The Omu wasn't just the Obi's wife. She was a sovereign institution. She had her own royal cabinet, she controlled the entire marketplace, and she held absolute veto power over decisions that affected the community. If the men wanted to go to war, the Omu and her council of women had to give the final nod. Go over to the Ashanti Empire in the modern-day Ghana. The Ohema, again, pardon me if I'm not saying these names right, but the Ohema or the Queen Mother was the ultimate custodian of the state. She possessed the constitutional authority to choose the king. And if that king failed his people, she was the one who could depose him. African women weren't just political co-rulers, honestly. They were the absolute engine of the economy. They were the market queens, especially in West Africa. They didn't have to ask permission to trade. They were just traders. They built and they managed massive commercial networks. They dictated prices and held absolute financial independence. They were warriors too, from Queen Amina of Zaria leading cavalries to expand her territory, to Queen Zinga of Ndongo holding off Portuguese colonizers for decades. Power, agency, and economic autonomy weren't Western feminist imports, guys. They were the foundation and the blueprint of African civilization. So, what happened? How did we go from female kings, queens, and economic powerhouses who were also part of ruling, and they held their own money, they established, and they were respected. At the same time, still raising their families. To being told that a woman's only duty is to be silent and serve. We went through the colonial washing machine. That's how I call it. When Victorian era British, French, and Belgian administrators arrived in the late 19th century, they brought with them a very specific, deeply repressed European worldview. In Victorian Europe, a middle-class woman was expected to be the angel of the house, docile, dependent, legally non-existent without a husband, and completely barred from politics and money. When these European men saw African women running markets, leading political councils, owning lands, their brains short-circuited, if I can use that word. They couldn't comprehend it. And more importantly, they couldn't control it. So they systematically dismantled it. First, they codified the patriarchy. When colonial governments set up tax systems, land registries, and local courts, they refused to talk to women. They only gave land titles to men. They wrote brand new customary laws that stripped African women of their ancient inheritance rights. Second, they used the mission schools as factories for submissiveness. While young African boys were taught administration, math, and leadership to help run the colony, young African girls were channeled into domestic science. They were taught how to sew, bake scones, clean, and be good, quiet Christian wives. Through European laws, European education, and a heavily distorted version of European religion, the colonizer spent a century training African societies to believe that a powerful woman was an abomination. And this brings us to the most tragic, frustrating irony of modern African life. Today, when an African woman stands up and demands her economic rights, or runs for high office, or refuses to tolerate abuse, she is met with a chorus of voices saying, "You are acting white. You are bringing Western ideas into our culture." Do you see the absolute madness in that statement? The idea that a woman should be entirely subservient, that she should not own property, that her voice does not belong in the halls of power. That is the Western import, actually. That is the Victorian ghost whispering in our homes. When we defend these oppressive structures that, under the guise of protecting our heritage, we are not defending our ancestors. We are defending the very white men who colonized us. We are protecting the legacy of Lord Lugard, King Leopold, and the British Empire. We have taken the Victorian straitjacket that was forced upon our grandmothers, polished it, called it traditional culture, and forced our daughters to wear it as well. It is a form of historical amnesia. We have forgotten who we were before they told us who we should be. To heal the continent, if you ask, we have to decolonize our minds, not just the men, women as well. And decolonizing our minds means realizing that empowering African women is not a departure from our roots, it's a return to them. When an African woman speaks with authority, when she dominates the marketplace, when she demands a seat at the table of power, she is not copying the West. She is channeling the spirit of the Omu. She is walking in the footsteps of Ya Asantewa. She is reclaiming the ancestral crown that was stolen from her. The next time someone tells you that equality is un-African, tell them to go read a history book. I do that, and I'm not apologizing for it. Tell them we are done polishing the colonizer's chains. Thank you for listening to this episode of the African Teapot. I am Exie. Keep your tea hot, your history accurate, and your mind fiercely independent. Culture is beautiful, and we should know the culture we defend. I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening, and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at african_teapot.